there everyone, it's Michelle and I'm here to do a tutorial that I promised on making polymer clay journal charms. Let me see if I can get it in frame there. And we can use these for charms on our journals, or you can use them for bookmarks, pendants, or what have you. So I'll be speaking to two different groups today. The first group will be my polymer clay people, and those are people who work in polymer all the time or are new to polymer and starting their journal with that medium. Or I'm talking to my junk journaling crowd who would use polymer for the occasional embellishment. So my polymer people will probably be investing in tools and accessories. So I will give those people the things they need. And my junk journal people, since this is just an occasional thing, I don't think you should have to make that big of a commitment money-wise or with tools. Lord knows we have enough stuff. So I'll try to come up with ideas for things you have around the house so you don't have to invest in too many things. So for our project today, we are essentially working with 2 bricks of clay, perhaps more if you want to make a more elaborate book. And basically you're working with a white for the pages and a brown for the cover, or a dark color for the cover. And this can be any brand of polymer clay. If you're a beginner, Craft Smart's fine, and Sculpey 3 is fine. Souffle just has designer colors. You will need an acrylic roller. If you're my polymer group, you will want to definitely invest in this. You can't be in polymer clay without one of these. This is a very basic tool. However, if you are not somebody who will be doing this regularly, you can use a piece of PVC pipe or any kind of roller that is not porous. You definitely do not want to use wood, because wood will pick up the dye in the polymer clay and you won't be able to get it out, and it'll transfer to every other colors and you won't be able to properly clean it. So stone, plastic, acrylic, any rolling surface that's hard like this and is not porous, you could use for polymer clay. If you're using something you use in your food, make sure it goes to the dishwasher a couple times and that you clean it thoroughly. I don't usually mix the two, but if you're a junk journaler and you're only doing this occasionally, you know, you may want to use it every now and then. You'll need a long blade. This is a polymer clay tool, but if you are a junk journaler, you could probably use a very long knife, or you could use something with a very straight edge and make the mark and then cut with a sharp knife. When we get to it, I'll bring that up. And then the things that are definitely necessary for whether you're a junk journaler or you're a polymer clay person is ceramic tiles. You'll need them to work on and to bake on. So I usually have a big one. And again, this is nothing fancy. This is from Home Depot, Lowe's, any home improvement store. We're talking maybe $1 to $2 on this one and maybe 25 cents on the smaller one. I have dozens of these because I teach classes, but the average person probably only needs a few of these or a few different sizes and one large one to work on. Then junk journalers will definitely have this already. It's an acrylic block we use for rubber stamping. If you're a polymer clay person, I highly recommend you invest in one of these, and I will go into that later. So far, nothing too fancy or expensive in front of us. Each brick is about $2 to $3. Acrylic, this is less than 10 with a coupon. These are, you know, $1, $2. Our next big fancy tool for today's project is a piece of aluminum foil, a razor blade, and then if you're going on the more expensive side, some gilder's wax or gilding wax, which can be used in polymer clay and all sorts of mixed media and with junk journaling. Definitely something I would invest in if you're a crafter. This is Deco art, but it comes in lots of different brands. And today I'm using Gold Rush. But if you don't want to spend the money on this, and this is probably about $8 to $10 without a coupon, but you can get these pretty much any craft store, so I would say use a coupon and it's very affordable. You can go to the dollar store and get cheap metallic eyeshadow or makeup, and that will work. Not quite as well, but definitely will still work, so you don't have to go on the expensive side. And then we have our little embellishments for our books, which I know junk journalers have. Little beads and doodads. Definitely some tiny little brads are helpful. And an eye pin. Now, the eye pins, probably everybody has. Jump rings, the same thing. And if you don't, you can probably go into your jewelry box and find some broken jewelry and probably find what you need without having to purchase anything. So the last thing that you will need for today's project is either hand sanitizer or wet ones. And I will go into that when we get into the project. So let me clear away some of these things and we will be ready to start. Now before we start, I have to have my all-important coffee. Okay, so I'm going to talk as if everybody is a beginner to polymer clay. And in future videos, I won't talk about this again. I will, in fact, refer back to this video if people want to have the basics of polymer clay. So I'll only go through this once, and then we'll say that we've done it, and you can check that off your list. So polymer clay is a man-made clay versus clay that you may be familiar with, which is earthen clay, clay that has to be fired in a kiln. And that is a natural product that comes from the earth. Now, Sculpey, or polymer clay, is a man-made product that started in the early 1900s, I believe, overseas. I want to say Germany, but I'm not 100% sure. It was basically a chemist who developed it for his daughter, who was a doll maker. And this clay she used to make the hands and the feet and the faces of her dolls. And at that time, whatever the chemical recipe or composition of polymer clay was, I don't believe it was toxin-free. In other words, it may not have been as safe as it is today. Over the years, manufacturers have worked to make polymer clay a very safe, non-toxic material, but some people still believe it to be dangerous to cook in their own oven or to use without gloves. That is not the case anymore, but because of how it began, that myth still kind of sticks with it. I personally am a very healthy person. I eat organically, I eat clean, and I would be the first one to be researching whether or not this is safe, and I feel very comfortable cooking and curing these products in my oven and breathing it in as it bakes, and I'm very comfortable using it. If for some reason you are not, I would encourage you to go online and do your own research, but I do it with my kids at the art center, and everywhere on here it will say non-toxic and child. Nobody wants you to eat it. You shouldn't just be eating it, and you shouldn't be like using a knife you use in your silverware and then licking the knife, but that's common sense, people. We wouldn't do that with any art material. So, but I just wanted to bring that to your attention because the really great thing about the fact that it's a man-made product is the fact that it's very accessible and you don't need any special equipment to get it to its final state. All you need is a toaster oven or a standard oven. Some people feel comfortable with a dedicated oven. You can find polymer clay ovens, which are basically basic toaster ovens that they mark up so that they can call them clay ovens. There's nothing special about them. In fact, if you love polymer clay, right now it's the springtime here. It's yard sale time. It's a great time to find some little oven for $5 at a yard sale and bring it home and dedicate it just for your polymer clay. So we're going to get started by doing something called conditioning. When you open these packages, when you buy them, first of all, you should always, there is a date when it was packaged, and sometimes you want to check that just to make sure it's somewhat fresh. But I always say the best way is just to sort of press the corner and make sure it kind of, that indent stays in there. You want it to be malleable and a bit soft. The only thing that can ruin polymer clay is having it be exposed to extreme heat. It will par cook it and then it's useless to you. Sometimes when they're being transferred over long distances in trucks and planes, they get overheated and they actually par cook. So if you can't push that corner down on Sculpey, it is not fresh. Other brands are very hard to begin with, so you wouldn't use that test on them, but since we're using Sculpey today, that's what we would do before we opened it. Now, I already have the color I want, and it's already open, so I'm not going to waste opening this package, but you would open it, and it would basically come out in a brick. This one hasn't been conditioned yet. And the two biggest things I can tell you for success in a polymer clay project is conditioning it and baking it properly. Now, conditioning it essentially does two things. Now, first of all, because this is a brick that's already been opened, it might have some bits of other things in it. Back, and boy, I have something that I have to get out of the way right away. Even teachers make mistakes. We're so busy thinking about our words because of teaching the class or making a video that sometimes our brain gets ahead of where we should be. And I almost led you astray. I caught it in time, and it's actually a very valuable lesson, and it might make you remember it more. So I'm not sure how I'll edit this, whether I'll edit that last part out or not, but this is what I have to tell you. The first thing is, before we even touch clay, we always take a wet nap and wipe our hands down good and wipe our surface, or we take some hand sanitizer and we put a thick layer on, and we don't let it dry. We actually wipe our hands off with a paper towel. The reason we do this is because polymer clay is a oil and lint magnet, and even if we think our hands are clean, they're not. They're not for polymer clay, at least. They will, the initial pass through our hands will end up picking up all the oil and dirt residue, lint from our sweaters or anything that's on our surface. So that was the first thing I forgot to tell you. The second thing is, and this is a very valuable tip for my polymer clay people, even if you've done it a bit, and for my new people who are just doing this as an embellishment. Because polymer clay is so sensitive to dirt and oil, you should always work with your lightest color first. Even if, let's say, that step or that part of your project doesn't come till later. If possible, always do your white parts first. And that's because your hands will never be as clean as they are at the beginning of your project. And all the little your fingerprints and pores will take the dyes from the different colors that you have. And even if you wash your hands, there may be still a little bit in there. And then when you touch your white, it'll get in your white and muddy it up. So what I should have done was not touch the brown at all, and I should have gone straight into the white. So we're just gonna go backwards and we're gonna go right into it. So let's start again with the white. In this particular case, the white is our pages. So we're working on our pages before we're working on a cover. Now let's say that we were working on a flower and the center of our flower was white. We would condition the white and do our very best to make the center of the flower the best we could before we actually did the petals. And that is because we don't want to corrupt our white with any kind of dirt. Now I want to show you something. Look, I just took that out of the package, and you can see it already has flecks of a little bit of brown, because again, I washed my hands, but you just never will have your hands as clean, and some kind of lint it got from somewhere. So back to conditioning. We want to now take this brick, and I usually break it in small bits because if you're not used to it, depending on the variety, it will get very stiff. So the way I condition is I rub it in my hands until I get like a snake or a log, and then I bend it in half, and then I twist it. Now see how that broke? This is why conditioning is so important. We have to activate the polymers. We have to activate them to adhere to each other and to be malleable enough to make our project strong. When we take clay right out of the package and start crafting with it, we are not making our clay as strong as it should be. We're going to do this process of making it into a log and twisting it and then making it into a ball as many times as it takes until it is nice and smooth and malleable. Now we want it to be easy to twist. Now see, I made it actually all the way around this time without it breaking, but we don't want it to be so soft that it's sticky. Sticky polymer clay is a clay that's going to show every imperfection, and it's not going to be easy to sculpt with. So, you know, it's like anything else. You have to sort of work with it enough to get the feel of it. Cooks know when a certain recipe is done based on the way the food looks or the thickness of a sauce, and painters know how much water to add to make a wash. And we are essentially working with clay. We're trying to find that consistency where it is malleable, so it's soft under the touch, but it's not so soft that it's squishy. And I think we're in a good place. Okay, so now we want to roll it into a ball. And that's just by rolling it in our palms in a circular manner. Some people do it on here. It's fine. And then I check it to make sure there's no cracks. Like there's one right there. Got a really handy dandy tool called your thumb, and you just erase it with that. Okay, now usually I start always from a ball, but because, yep, no, actually we are going to stick with a ball because these are the pages. Okay, so here I have the ball in the center of my tile, and I want to flatten it to be the pages. Now I could go right in with the roller and start rolling it as you would with dough, but I might not get a very consistent thickness, which is what I want for pages. This is where this is invaluable. I was using little tiles to press down, but you can't see how big it gets. With this, you can actually see the size you're pressing through it. So what we're going to do is we're going to press down with an even amount of pressure, and then we're going to pick it up. And it's not so much how big this is, it's how thick it is. I think that's a good thickness for our pages. So now at this point, we're going to cut a square. Now, if we are making a book this big, this will be just about the size we want for the square. This size, I think, is pretty good for a bookmark, but if I was making it into a pendant, it might be a little large on my shirt, hanging, you know, down. If it's hanging off the back of a journal, it might be a little large. So this one's slightly smaller, and you could even go smaller. Let's start with about this size. So you could do one of two things. You could either take your blade or your big blade, whichever works for you. I'm going to take the big blade, and first I'm going to just cut off the round parts. And now I have kind of a square, if you can see that. Now that's not really a book shape. Books aren't mostly a square. So I'm going to come in with my blade and I'm going to start pressing it until I like the shape of it. And I'm going to use, you could also use this. What this does is it allows the sides to be really flat and flush. And I think that's pretty good. So this is what it looks like. Now there are some imperfections, but I don't need to worry about that because these are the pages and it's inside my book. So I'm going to actually make two. I always say when you're doing a project with polymer clay, because the setup is so much, it's worth it to make, you know, at least 2 or 3 at a time, because the amount of time it's going to take you to make another 2 isn't going to be as much as it's going to take just to make 1 and then just break it down and then make another one at some point. Plus the fact if you make 3, chances are you're going to love 1, 1's going to be okay, and 1 isn't going to be so great. So the one that's not so great you could use in a different project or give to someone you don't really care about. Or you could, you know, add it to something else where it's not really going to be prominent, and I'm sure it'll look fine. Okay, let's see if I have this done. All right, I'm going to pause this and get another one cut out so that you don't have to watch me do the whole process again. Okay, I'm back. So I ended up making 3. I made a regular size one. I made a slightly smaller one, and then I made a really much smaller one. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to take these and put them in the refrigerator. Why do I put them in the refrigerator? Well, let me tell you. In between steps, it's nice to put polymer clay in the fridge, things that you've made already, because it will firm them up, and then when you work with them again, your hands are warm. Because they're cool, they will retain their shape better, and they'll have a better end product. So the pages are in the fridge right now. I have white on my hands, which might make you think that I don't need to wash my hands before I touch this brown, but it's the opposite, because I will end up putting a chalky residue all over this brown if I don't wash them. So I'm going to do the hand sanitizer, put a lot all over my hands, and then I'm going to wipe that off. And what that does is the alcohol in the hand sanitizer really breaks through that residue and will take off the color. Now, if I was using red, this whole paper towel would be pinkish and you would see the dye come off. But because it's white, you can't really see it. But if I had conditioned my brown, you would see sort of like this white chalky residue. So I'm using, I think the color I'm using is chocolate. I also like suede brown and tan, but I want it to be sort of a faux leather. Now this one, it's much darker than this, I believe. So I believe I probably used this color maybe for it, which was, no, this is chocolate. So this must be suede brown that I'm using. Okay. And it's actually very soft, probably softer than what I would usually prefer. It's funny, some colors just have a different consistency. So in this particular case, I'm not going to roll it into a ball, because if I do, I'm going to have to press it with that larger tile, and I don't want to do that. Instead, I'm going to roll it on my tile into sort of a cylinder. Now, if I could give you a tip for success, one of the biggest tips with polymer clay is a very gentle touch, and it comes with practice and time. But basically you want the tile to do the work, and you're just going back and forth with your hand, not staying in one place, to make sort of a cylinder, okay? And then I'm going to take this just to start it, and I'm going to press it down with equal pressure, like that, and then I'm going to come in with my roller. And what I'm going to try to do is roll this out in a very even consistency. Now, how consistent, what should the thickness be for the book? Well, if you can see, I think I would say it's probably a 1/16 or an 1/8 of an inch. You want it to be thick enough to look like a cover. You don't want it to be really thin because it won't be strong, but you don't want it to be so thick that it looks the proportions off. So let's see. This looks like it's about right. It might be a little thick, so I'm just going to go over it a couple more times. Okay. All right. And let's see. I might make a journal a different color as well so you can see that. So let me use some of the extra brown I have in my kit. I take bead kits, you know, plastic bead boxes, and I put colors that I have opened that I'm not using in there. Polymer clay will stay good for decades if you store it right. Cool, away from the light, and covered, it will not dry up. It's just not what the nature of polymer clay is. The biggest thing for polymer clay to get ruined is being exposed to the air, so it's really dirty, or being exposed to heat. Heat will damage it past the point that you can use it ever again. So I think I'm going to use this color on a smaller journal. So I'm going to do my cylinder, and I'm probably just press with this one, and then finish it up with all right, that looks about right. And let's see, is there any other color I want to try? Let's try this color. This color would be this chocolate color. And that will give you a good idea of the different shades that your book could be. For this project, especially if you're a beginner, I would say just, you know, pick the brown you like and use that as your base color with white. That's really all you'll need for the first go around. Okay. So now I'm going to wash my hands again and go get the books out of the fridge. Okay, my hands are washed, or at least I think they are. I have my 3 books out of the fridge, and I have my 3 colors. Let's start with our first one. Okay. So I'll put these 2 aside. I'm going to take my book and I'm going to put it probably off to the center there. And then I'm going to take this long blade. And again, this is where if you're not a polymer person, you could take something with a very sharp edge, you know, even something like an envelope, and maybe mark it and then cut it with a sharp knife or a razor blade. But because I do own this, I'm going to come just above the white page and pull that off. And again, for my journalers, it's just like when we make our cover over our signatures. Our signatures aren't quite as tall or as big as our cover. And then I'll come slightly down on the bottom. Okay. That actually might be a little big. I'll take just a teeny bit more off. Okay. So now I want my pages to be as crisp as possible. So before I lay it in, I'm going to come in here and just really firm up those edges and make it as flat as I possibly can. Now, because it's cool, it's going to retain that a little bit more. I'm going to bring it over here where the rounded edge is, and I'm going to cut the first edge right close to my book. Can you see that? Can you see how close it is? But there's just a little lip there. Okay. And I'm left-handed, so I might do things backward than you. So, you know, if you need to put it on this side first and roll it this way, that's fine, but I'm going to roll it this way, which is probably a left-hander's move. Okay, so now I'm going to carefully move it and place it in the upright position here. And I'm going to take my block and I'm going to gently push down just so that I can make sure the binding of the book is making contact with that bottom piece. And then I'm going to roll it over. And this is what it looks like. I'm going to gently press down. Now I have my guide as far as where to cut. I'm going to go right against that cover. And ta-da, you can see the little base of our book. Isn't it cute? It's so cute. Okay, so now how do we take this, which looks a little bit like an Oreo cookie that's square, to make it look more realistic like a book? Well, we are going to take our aluminum foil and we are going to crumple it up. And then we're going to uncrumple it. Now, some people do this step while the brown is laying down, but I find that when we're doing the pressing down and putting it on, a lot of these grooves get smoothed out. So I like to do it personally afterwards. I hope this isn't making a horrible noise on camera, so I'm going to kind of pull it away. So all I'm doing right now is straightening up my tin foil or aluminum foil. And I'm going to press it down here. And now I'm going to come in here and I'm going to start pressing it lightly down on my book. I don't know if you can see, but it makes these nice indents right here. And this is what's going to make it look like leather. Now, if it starts getting a little misshapen, you want to come in and just kind of tap it. And what you can do is you can have a little rolled up ball of tin foil and come in and just hand put in the ones that you want. All right, I don't know if you can see this. Can you see that? Okay, I'm gonna put this one down, and now I'm gonna put the other two covers on. I'll do one more on camera, and then I'll do one off camera just to speed things up. Okay, let's do the medium book now. And I'll show you the other process, the other option, because you know what? There isn't one size fits all. It's whatever works best for you. So some people do the leather part first. That way they don't have to worry about squishing out the book, and they can push bigger dents in it. And that's fine. It's just sometimes you have to go back in after, and I don't want it to change my thickness. All right, so we're going to come in here. We're going to cut the end of the book. We're going to roll, we're going to cut the top off and the bottom. And then we're going to roll it. Now, in this case, I didn't press the back down because I noticed that my pages were a little misshapen, and I really want that nice, crisp book look. Okay. So I'm going to place that on. Roll it. Press it just gently and go over. I have book number 2. And I might go in and add a few more little textured bits. I'm now going to do book number 3, put it in the fridge for 5 minutes, and I'll be back. I am back. So right now my books are in the fridge, and that's so that I can firm them up before my next step. And what I want to do is I want to match up my colors. If you recall, I had my 3 different browns. And what I'm going to do is I want on my books a strap. I might want some little corner pieces, and I might want something on the binding. So what I want to do is probably prep it so that I'm ready for those straps, so that while it's in the refrigerator, I'm going forward with other steps. So I'm going to take this and I'm going to roll it into a nice flat fairly thin piece of clay. All right, that'll be my dark. And then this is my medium. Okay, and I don't have a whole lot of this sort of reddish brown. Oh, that was my dog. I have 2 dogs. They are terrier mixes, one from Puerto Rico and one from Mississippi, and they're fairly quiet until they see something outside. So if they start barking. Okay, so I have 3 different colors. So we're going to get ready for what I consider the most fun part, which is the decorating. It's always the fun part. And I'm going to have a few eye pins. Let's see, I don't have a gold jump ring, so I think I'm going to put a few things down that I think I'm interested in putting on my book. I have these sort of little metal beads. Yikes. And I have some gears, and here's a little silver jump ring. Oh, these are stars. I didn't even realize these are stars. Well, that's going to be quite interesting. I will tell you, that will be interesting. All right, well now I have a whole nother thing to think about. Okay, I don't even think I realized that when I purchased them. I usually get the Recollection brads that are just the round. Okay, and then I have a little bag of gears, if you wanted to go a little steampunk. Okay, I'm gonna go grab my books out of the fridge, because how many times do you say that sentence? Here they are. Aren't they cute? I love little things. Gosh, I love little things. Probably started with Fisher-Price Little People. Oh, I loved that. Anyway, okay, so I'm going to start with the biggest book because that'll be the easiest one to see. The first thing we want to do is put in our pages. So we're going to take the end of the blade, and I apologize for my hands. Lord, I am such a tomboy. I just can't, even when I paint them, they still look horrible, but whatever. Okay, so I'm going to come in with my blade and I'm just going to press down, and you can even do a sideways motion if you want. You're just trying to make the effective pages without distorting the book. Can you see that? I'll go this side too. Now this is the challenging part for new people, to not, even for me, to not blend that cover into the white pages. You really want to kind of keep them apart. And I do both sides first, this side and then that side. Oop. Don't do that. That's the klutz coming in. And then I'll make a few really big dents because, you know, this book was really loved and maybe there's a couple of dog ears in there. Not that anybody I know dog ears books. Guilty. And I'm just going to come in here and do the pages on the front of the book. And sometimes I even like to open it up a little bit, like the book is, you know, kind of old and tattered a little bit. I think that looks kind of cool. So now that we have our pages, I'm going to lay this down and I'm going to cut this. Well, I'm not going to do the strap. I'm actually going to put the gold in. So this is where you take your gilder's wax. And I did hydrate it after somebody made a comment on my last one when I said that this was drying out, and I think it is much better than what it was. And I'm just going to gently start rubbing the gold wax over where the texture is that we put in. Now I don't want to be up close to the camera because then I'm going to distort my book. You know, it's definitely like a artistic decision how much gold you want to put on your book. And if you do too much, you can always take it off with a little alcohol, rubbing alcohol, which I think it's a little thick for my taste in places. And you can definitely go back in and put in some more. And it could be because I rehydrated mine that it's very thick. I usually go in a lot, not quite as thick as that. I don't want it to start getting breaching on those pages. And I definitely don't like how some of it got on the pages. So I'm going to go in and clean that up. So this is how I clean it up. I take a little bit of rubbing alcohol and a Q-tip, and I can literally clean away if I have too much wax. You don't want to use too much alcohol because it's essentially eating the top layer of your polymer off, but it is an excellent way to clean up a project if it gets away from you. Okay. All right. So I've taken that down a little. I'm going to let that rest because it's had some alcohol, and I'm going to move on to the next book. I'm going to show you on this book the effect of cheap makeup. So you can decide whether you want to invest. This is an experiment for me too. I've never used this brand. It's awfully sparkly. Wow, that's a lot of sparkle. I'm not sure. I don't think I like how grainy this one is. Let's try. It's like for your club nights out. Chicka chicka bow wow. All right, let's see. Okay, that's a little bit more subtle. But, you know, it's an old book. It could be like some gold leaf that's like breaking off. But definitely when you rub in a little color, you see all of those little marks we've made. And it definitely brings out what it's that leathery look so that it looks more like leather. See that? Okay, so that one is done. You know, I'm not sure what I think. See that gold? It's, you know, it's awfully chunky, but at the same time, it really does look a little bit like gold leaf. So I might just put it in a couple places so that it looks a little intentional. Okay, and then finally our last one. What am I going to do here? I'll put a little of the gold leaf again. Not the gold leaf, the gilding wax, but I'm going to go a lot lighter. And I still have sparkles all over my fingers from the last one, so that's interesting. Okay, so we have a little of our books. We put some metallic on it. And now we want to start decorating. Okay, so I think for this book, I really liked this little charm. Can you see that? And I think I would like it. Oh, wait a minute. I want to do one more thing. I know I brought toothpicks out here. You can take a toothpick, or you can take the flat side of your blade, or this side of this blade, and you want to come in and make a binding mark. That's what makes it look like it's a bound book. Do you see that? Okay, so we're going to come in and we're going to do that. I might not do it as thick on the other ones. You could do it with the sharp part. I just don't think that looks as good. You can do it with your toothpick. Just come in and do it right here. Okay. And then I'm going to go, before I add the final decorations, I'm going to come back in and notice that a lot of my pages have smoothed out. It's because we handle them so much, and that's why a light touch is so important. And if you ever feel like your project is starting to get a little squishy and muddy and it's losing its shape as a book, I say pop it in the fridge so that it gets hard, and then you can go back in and sort of remold it. You know, you can take your hard edge. Look at some of that gold got on there. I wonder if it would look good to try to see if the pages could look like they were gold. You know how books have gold pages in them, the gilding in the page. I wonder if we could do that. Might have to try that. Maybe with one of these before we put it in the oven. And I'm running, I don't know how many minutes this video is. It's getting kind of long. My son will be coming home from school, so I definitely don't want... All right, so we check our pages. So our pages are in, and I now want to decorate. So I'm going to start with this one first. I think I'm going to take this little charm, and I'm going to press it in. Now there is a product called Bacon Bond, which I would advise you buying if you're going to be making a lot of projects, and I would have put a little under that. It's an adhesive to keep things like this on. But since I'm trying to make this as inexpensive as possible, I'm going to say for my my newbies, if something pops off, you can always use super glue afterwards. So I might take a little bit of my white and a little bit of my brown, and I might make a new color. You can actually mix colors. And I might want to make, you know what, they do sell gold clay. I don't think I have any up here, but I was just thinking about making sort of a new color, just slightly lighter. And what I think I'll do, maybe I'll use this color, is I'm going to cut out a square. Okay. See that square? And I'll try to make it as square as possible. Oof, sorry for that sound. Jeepers. Okay. Now I'm going to cut that like that so it's like a triangle. And I can fit that right on the corner of my book. Like that and like that. And then of course I have to make one for the back side because, you know, you can't make corners for one side and not the other side. Now, polymer clay takes acrylic paint quite well. So if you wanted to add some gold paint after the product is all baked, you could definitely do that. So we can put the corners on this side as well. Okay. And then if you want a strap, you can cut a strap. Because I have this, I don't have a lot of room. So I think what I might do is find one of these little gold stars. Where is it? I don't even know if you can see it. It's so teeny tiny. And I'm going to stick it right in here like this. And then I'm going to go on the back here and cut that. And can you see the little book? Can you see the little latch and the strap? And you want to take a little eye pin and of course stick that in there like that, so we have something to hang it on after. And I'm just going to go back in and make sure all my pieces and parts are firm. And look good. Now I think we're running kind of long on time, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to decorate these books and then I'm going to get them ready for the oven. Okay, so we are in the home stretch of our project. So I finished the 3 books. I took the tiniest one and I put a little gold jump ring and made a little like a little strap. I tried to gild the pages. I don't like how it came out, but you know what, once it's baked I'll figure that out. I think what I probably should do if I wanted a gold center is paint it afterwards or use gold clay. I love this one. I just put a little key, made some dark corners and a little thing on the back, and I made a little ribbon out of clay for bookmark. And the big one, I decided, I bought this sort of key ring clip and it has this piece, so I made a hole for this to bake. I could bake it with this in it. I think I will, just to keep the circle open, but then I will remove it after. So that sound you just heard was my oven, and each package of clay will tell you what to bake it at. In this particular case, it says 275 or 130 Celsius for 15 minutes per 1/4 inch. All right, that's very difficult. Really, you know, what would these bake at, right? Because they're way more than a 1/4 inch. I generally bake everything for about a half an hour unless it's really small. So I'm going to put these in 275 for half an hour and then I will take them out and we'll have our last little bit of wrap up and then our project will be done. So our little items are in the oven and I want to go over a couple last minute things about polymer clay storage. So now our project's done and I have one of these boxes. See, and I put all my clay in it. I will match the colors up and put them together in the thing. Now generally I would usually put the dark with the dark. You can see I have some bits of sparkle in there. I don't want to mix that up. It's going to get my next project. Here are little bits and pieces from all 3 of the clays. I take these scraps and I put them in a special section in my box. I can't show you, but it's just like one of the little containers and I'll put all the little scraps. And I can literally take these little scraps and keep building a scrap pile or a bin. And, you know, we'll do maybe in the future a video on all the great projects you can do with scraps. My point is, don't ever throw away your polymer clay. Big chunks like this that are white that we want to preserve, I don't generally trust to be in a box like that without being wrapped up, so I will rewrap it in its package to keep it clean. I will put that in the white section of the box. I actually have a box for blues, for browns, for each different color scheme. And then I'll clean my tools, and I'll clean my tools with wipes. A couple things I want to go over while it's baking. Let's go over just a few of the tips that we learned today. Polymer clay, make sure it's fresh. Polymer clay, make sure you condition it. That's really important. While it's baking, make sure you put it on the right temperature, and use a oven thermometer if you're unsure that your oven is exactly right on. This is not like cookies where you could be 20 degrees off and it would be fine. You literally could, if you overcook it, you can burn it. And boy, polymer clay is nasty smelling if it is, if it's burnt. Or it can be undercooked, which means it would not be quite as strong. When your items are cooked, generally 30 to 40 minutes, if it's something thick like we just did, when they come out of the oven, they'll be very rubbery. That's the biggest time that things can break. My suggestion is just leave them on the little tile. That's what we're cooking them on right now. Leave them on the tile, let them cool down on their own. And then as they cool, they'll get harder and harder. And once it's completely cool, they'll be like that. And they'll be pretty durable. What we do with our finished ones is there's lots of options. You could hook them onto a bookmark and put them in your journal. Hook them with a bigger jump ring, maybe some beads, have some other strings of beads come down. What a great little bookmark that would be hanging on the outside of your journal. You can hook them onto clips with charms and little doodads, and then hook that on the back of your journal, or make a cute one for your kid's backpack or whatever and clip that on. That's a great idea. You can buy these little faux leather necklaces and put one on a jump ring and make it into a pendant. You could buy a ball chain and make it a very long pendant, which if it's this size, it would hang really nicely, like on a long sweater or something like that. There are really so many things that you can do. And like I said, find little charms and things that are around your house and incorporate those either on your bookmarks or on your dangles or even on your book. All right, guys, we're in the home stretch here. My books are out of the oven, and I'm going to just do a last couple of things, and then we will wrap up this little lesson. So this is the book that had the little charm thing. So you just put beads on this, sort of like the Pandora beads, I think, and you can slip them on like that. I think this bead is a little bit too big. And the noise you're hearing in the background is my lovely dog chewing her bone. Okay, and then I think this screws on here. Don't making you dizzy. Am I making you dizzy? There. So we got a little key ring there. How cute is that? The journal lover in your life. And our little book has a little strap and an embellishment there and a star. Cute. And then this is my favorite one. With the little key. And this is the one I don't care so much for. But you know what? I'll find something. It would still look cute with the right things on the back of a tassel on the back of a book. So these are okay just as they are, but if you want to varnish them to give them a little extra shine, you can do that. I like Deco Art Dura Clear That is my favorite. I have used so many different varnishes over the years. The number one thing not to use is nail polish. Do not use nail polish. It will eat right through your projects. Maybe not today or tomorrow, but one day you'll go to look at your adorable little book and it will just be falling apart and probably sticky and gross. And that's because of nail polish. You want to use this. Some people use Mod Podge, which you can use Mod Podge, but it gets sticky if the item is heated. So let's say this cute little dude you want to hang in your car from your rear view mirror because you just think it's adorable and you're a journal maker and you just want that hanging from in your car. And it's a 95-degree day and turns out to be like 200 degrees in your car. You don't want Mod Podge to be on the outside and start dripping in your car and getting all sticky and ruining your project. Use this. So we have made our little charms and I hope that you've learned something. Just a couple things about what's up and coming. I had this on my Instagram if you follow me. It's a little nest that I made out of string and pressed flowers. And I think I'm going to do some kind of tutorial, a little bit on the process, but a lot more about the different kinds of laminates that you can use, the acetates in the lamination machine, what the difference would be, the different products you can use for these like windows and pressed flower projects. That's to come. And this weekend, I'm going on a bird watching weekend with my mom. We're going on an island on the coast of New Hampshire, and it's a first for me. We'll see how it goes. It could be super fun, or I could be a huge dork. It could go either way. So that's probably going to be the subject of my next Tea and Me next month, and maybe I'll show you how these end up on a journal. And you can continue to follow me on Tape and Twine on Instagram, or you can go to my Facebook page and follow my business at Creative Cottage Studio. It is creativecottageh.com on the web. So that's it. Thanks for hanging with me today. If you liked anything you saw today or learned something, please like. I'd love you to subscribe. I appreciate your time. Thanks for hanging with me. Bye.